Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Clark, a reporter at The Information. I'm here today with Kirthiga Reddy of SoftBank. Hi, Kirthiga. Welcome.
Delighted to be here, Kate.
We're so glad to have you. Well, I have a lot of topics to jump into, but I thought we could start with an update on SoftBank. So, SoftBank hasn't been in the news quite as much this year as in previous years. And I'm curious, are you guys making fewer deals in 2020?
Kate, it's fascinating you say that because from where I sit, I see tremendous momentum with the Vision Fund. If you take a look at Vision Fund 1 investments, over 86 investments from Vision Fund 1, and Vision Fund 2, they made 7 investments. If you look at recent news, even just within the last month, Kate, we had Baike, a Vision Fund 2 company out of China that went public. We had out of Vision Fund 1, Reddy Therapeutics, which is a computational drug discovery platform with an initial target on oncology. That went public. 2 days ago, late breaking, OSI Soft, one of the Vision Fund 1 companies, got acquired. So I certainly, from where I sit, I see the momentum. And the thesis, Kate, remains unchanged. The investment thesis is that AI and data is transforming industries, changing the way we live and work. And I see that at play across our investments.
Would you say you slowed down at all, though, as a result of the coronavirus outbreak?
Kate, when coronavirus hit, we certainly took a lot of time to look inward within our portfolio companies and make sure we are supporting them to prepare for the worst, become leaner, more profitable companies, but also take advantage of new opportunities. If I could give you one example there, Kate, one of the companies that I sit on the board of is Collective Health. Within weeks of the pandemic, so Collective Health is a company that's transforming the self-insured health benefit space in the United States. It's a $1 trillion+ market. Within weeks of the pandemic, they had a prototype for Collective Go, which enables safer return to work. It's a clinically proven model that includes screening, testing, and monitoring of your employee population. They had that within weeks. Within months, we had partnerships like the one announced with Urban Sitter, where it allows for safer return to work for families while enabling safer childcare. So certainly we did spend a lot of time internally with our portfolio companies, but like the examples that I mentioned, we have continued our investment base.
And I do want to talk more about the COVID impact on portfolio companies, but I'm also curious, in May, it was reported that the fate of the Vision Fund 2 was sort of uncertain because SoftBank had yet to reach out to investors to raise capital for that fund. Is there any update you can give us about the Vision Fund 2?
Totally. So as I mentioned, 7 investments out of Vision Fund 2, one of which has already gone public. This is Baike from China, which is in the real estate tech space. Some of our recent investments, Kate, closer to home, Encoded, which is a precision gene cell therapy company. We also invested in Carius, which is a liquid biopsy company that's focused on infectious diseases. So very excited to see that thesis of AI and data transforming industries across very different sectors, real estate and health tech, as I just mentioned.
So there's been a series of, high-profile flops within SoftBank Vision Fund portfolio. One of those recently being Brandless. I'm curious, not about the companies in particular, but how does SoftBank learn lessons from those failures, or what lessons in particular would you say you've learned from observing those?
Yeah, great question. Kate, the perspective that I have is when one is doing something as bold, as unprecedented as the Vision Fund, there are bound to be learnings, bound to be mistakes. And the important thing is that we learn quickly and course correct. If I reflect on some key learnings at a firm level, I would probably highlight 3 of them. One, the balance between growth and profitability. And that's something that we started that shift way back in September. So when the global pandemic hit, actually our companies were very well positioned because they were already thinking about that and had looked into what it takes to become leaner, more profitable. The second lesson learned was around governance, and we have certainly thought through how is it that we heighten how we do governance. And the third one is, and this is lessons again that we're taking into Vision Fund 2 very strongly, is tightening up our investment process, including greater flexibility in the kind of equity stake that we take and the check sizes that we write. So net, certainly learning very quickly, and we are seeing that momentum and that shift and that course correction reflecting itself into our investment decisions in Fund 2.
Do you think the Vision Fund and its strategy is just entirely misunderstood, or why do you think there is such criticism of the Vision Fund and of Masa's strategy?
It's a great question, Kate, and I am actually reminded of an anecdote from my former employer, Facebook, where if I rewind back to the Facebook IPO, we were under severe media attention and scrutiny for the lack of a mobile monetization strategy. I remember Mark and Cheryl talking at the weekly Q&A that they do and talking about how when the press is all negative on you, things internally are never as bad as it seems. And conversely, when the press is all rosy about you, things internally are never as good. And so the important thing is to stay focused on our mission and to learn quickly and to act with conviction, integrity, and confidence. And I'd say that's what we are doing. We are learning quickly, and we are staying focused on our mission, helping our portfolio companies, focused on returns for our LPs, as well as looking for the next set of transformative companies to bring into the SoftBank family fold.
So another company that has been heavily scrutinized by the press is WeWork. Of course, you joined the board earlier this year, just ahead of the coronavirus outbreak. Can you just tell us a little bit about what the few weeks were like when you heard of the virus, you're working with WeWork? What were those initial conversations like as you sort of tried to prepare the business for a very uncertain period?
Kate, I remember that the first board meeting, once I officially joined the board, was literally a few days after I joined. I had a chock full day. Those 2 days, I had other board meetings that were conflicting. I almost thought, should I just do the WeWork board meeting on the phone versus trying to juggle all the flight schedule? And I'm so grateful for Jen Barrett, who's the chief legal officer, who said, no, try to make it out there. Because if I hadn't taken that flight, I would have never had a face-to-face board meeting with WeWork. Kate, so what drew me to WeWork was firstly, its mission. During my tenure at Facebook India, I'd opened 7 offices, and I knew very clearly the connect between space, culture, productivity. And so that was the first thing that drew me to WeWork. In terms of COVID pandemic and its impact, what we are realizing, Kate, is that the mission of the company of WeWork is actually more important now than ever. WeWork is about flexibility, and flexibility at a global scale. And we are finding that there's new demand from enterprises who are looking to de-densify, looking for an hub and spoke model to offer employees space to work closer to where they live, new demand from universities. So if I rewind back to that initial days, first it was, of course, about the safety of the employees and how is it that we make sure that everyone is taken care of. The next thing was to prepare for the worst. The next thing was to start thinking about what are the new opportunities that the COVID pandemic brings about. And it's been extraordinary to see them focused on their 5-year strategic plan, which was another key thing that drew me to this role. And so they've stayed focused on their mission. Flexibility is more important now than ever, and they've made strong progress in terms of expense management. One stat that I'll share there, Kate, is Q2 revenue was 882 million, up 9% year on year. It shows their progress on their 5-year strategic plan for the turnaround, as well as their focus on execution.
So WeWork does indeed think that people will return to co-working spaces in a post-COVID universe in which clearly more people will be working from home and working remotely.
Eric Schmidt, I heard him speaking at one forum where he said, in the post-COVID world and the need to de-densify, they're actually going to need more real estate space rather than less. And we are seeing, the company is certainly seeing that demand. You can read the press. Microsoft and Merck are 2 companies that have spoken about new space that they have in partnership with WeWork. NYU, Kate, has a partnership with WeWork in Shanghai, where they allow for over 3,000 students who are in China the option to do their fall semester out of a WeWork Shanghai office. It's also interesting when you see the stats. I mean, a couple of things that I'd highlight. Gen Z, I don't think, wants to be known as a Zoom generation. They want that social interaction. They've also seen stats about how work from home, it truly, I mean, not many people have the luxury of having their own space for every member. And as such, it disproportionately impacts those without the right economic means to have, in their own rooms. So all of those forces coming together, we are excited about the mission of WeWork and the flexibility that WeWork offers, and management's focus on execution.
So to summarize, WeWork is betting on the fact that the death of offices will lead people to more smaller distributed workplaces, aka co-working spaces, more than prior to the 2020 outbreak.
COVID certainly has an impact, Kate, and the exact impact is yet to be seen, but the company is also seeing demand in these new spaces. The company is also focused on new product innovation. Like I mentioned, the Collective Go example with Collective Health, WeWork introduced 2 new products in the last few weeks. One is All Access that lets existing member use any location, even if they're signed up for one specific location. Idea is to allow more flexibility. Maybe they can cut down on commute, maybe they can avoid public transport in this COVID timeframe. They have a pilot going on in New York City, 12 locations, and it might have expanded, again, they innovate very quickly, where for new members, you can book a conference room or a workspace by the hour or by the day. Flexibility, that's what they're betting on. And they also have over $4 billion in cash and unfunded cash commitments to tide them over the uncertainties of COVID.
That should be enough cash to get them through at least a few more months. Is it possible that we'll see a WeWork IPO in 2020?
Well, so one, it's not few more months. I actually refer to the large check sizes that SoftBank rides and also the advantage that gives companies to withstand such uncertainties. Most of our companies have enough capital for 18 to 24 months, and they have little or no debt, again, strongly positioned to weather this pandemic.
So is it possible we'll see WeWork go public in the remainder of 2020? Is that completely out of the question?
Well, no, I can't comment on the IPO, but I will comment that they stay very focused on the 5-year strategic plan that they outlined at the beginning of the year and are focused on execution. Sandeep and his executive team had their first social distance executive all hands. Sandeep, the CEO of WeWork, so they had their first social distance executive offsite. What we hear from there is that strong focus on the mission, providing flexibility, and the 5-year turnaround.
Okay, well, I want to talk about India before we run out of time. So before, as you mentioned, you were previously at Facebook, where you were a managing director for business in India and Southeast Asia. What is the outlook for companies like Facebook in India right now? I mean, we know it's the next frontier, and all of these companies are working very hard to gain a foothold in that market. But I mean, what's just kind of like the 30,000-foot view on Facebook in India right now?
So I was a managing director for Facebook India and South Asia. In terms of outlook, one of my favorite Facebook India stories, Kate, that illustrates the potential is when in an event, Pallavi Gupta, the founder of the Mast Kalandar fast food chain, came up to me and said, Kirthiga, most of my cooks, they don't know how to read, they don't know how to write, but they know how to use the phone and they know how to use Facebook. And for a minute, I was taken aback. I said, that doesn't compute, don't know how to read, don't know how to write, but they're using Facebook. And sure enough, she sent me their profile pages. There were pictures of their children being uploaded, videos of festivals being celebrated, interaction with media, interaction with entertainment. To me, that story is symbolic of the transformation that's sweeping through that country and the impact that it has on people, individual communities, society, economies. It's the largest democracy in the world. The stats in terms of the economic stats are staggering. 20x growth in online groceries over the next 5 years. We are certainly seeing that digital transformation be a huge tailwind for the SoftBank portfolio companies as well across categories. And if I step back at the 30,000 foot level, it's no wonder that all of these companies have India as such a key part of their strategic priority. When it comes to the Vision Fund, India is a key priority. We firmly believe that investing in the technology trends of today will enable returns in economies, in society, in communities. In my view, nowhere is that more true than in India.
And why do all these American companies want a piece of Reliance Jio, which is an Indian business?
Yeah, so I can't comment on the specific transaction, but again, if you look at the trends that I spoke about, what's happening in terms of online grocery, e-commerce is expected to double in the next 4 years. You can see that interest and that interest in partnering.
We recently reported that SoftBank was potentially looking to involve itself in a TikTok transaction. And I'm curious, do you think it's possible TikTok could become as big of a company as Facebook one day? Or what are your thoughts on TikTok, which is all people are talking about in tech?
Yeah, so I appreciate the interest there. And obviously I can't comment on the specific example that you spoke about. What I will say, Kate, is TikTok is a big part in my family. I have 2 teenage girls. And the last TikTok they sent to me was parenting advice, where it said, if your children talk back at you, you should be grateful because that means that they can withstand peer pressure. So TikTok is a big part of our life and an important investment for the Vision Fund.
Last question I want to ask you before we hop off is, you were the first female investment partner when you joined SoftBank in 2018. Since you joined, what has SoftBank done to increase the diversity of its investors?
Sure. Kate, the good news is that while I was the first, I'm certainly not the last. We have 2 female investment partners in the company. Overall, on the investing team, about 25% of the investing team is female. Very strong leadership across all levels. If I think about what the progress on the D&I front, I mean, the first thing I want to acknowledge is that we all need to do more. SoftBank Vision Fund needs to do more. We all need to do more. But we have taken concrete steps, Kate, and we think of this in 3 different dimensions. 1, change starts within. And so it first started with an establishment of a diversity and inclusion council, where we set firm-wide diversity goals and put in a whole set of measures internally. We also took that support to our portfolio companies. One example is our Connect and Lead event, where we brought over 100 incredible rising female leaders. With a similar goal to this conference, it's to enable them with the business connections and insights to help advance their careers. And finally, a lot of focus on increasing funding going to underrepresented and diverse founders. 2 initiatives that I'll call out there. One is the Opportunity Fund, a $100 million fund for people of color in the United States, and that one is led by SoftBank Group. The Vision Fund, late last year, we started our Emerge Accelerator program for underrepresented founders. That culminated in a showcase event a few weeks ago, where we had 14 incredible founders present to over 400 investors, Vision Fund employees, and our partners across the globe. Small steps, and we all have to take bigger strides.
Well, there's much more to say about that, but I think that's all we have time for. So thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Kate, excited to be here. And if I had to share one final thought, to me, I remember one of the quote of Andy Grove, one of the business leaders I admire, who said, market share is won and lost during time of transitions. We are certainly in the midst of many transitions. And at the Vision Fund, I see the momentum, I feel the momentum, and we are focused on helping our companies end up on the winning side. And that's my hope for everyone who is listening. So thank you again, Kate.
Thanks so much.
At Intuit, we believe you cannot have prosperity without equality. Women and people of color should not be paid less than men for the same work. 3 years ago, we made a commitment to reach and maintain pay equity for our employees. But pay equity is an ongoing process, and all companies must join this fight. Like the 19th Amendment, we are not done.